Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Hello, preschool peeps. Welcome back.
Hi, peeps.
We are going to shout out the usual couple places. And then this topic today is really Allison's
It's
topic.
mine. I'm super excited about it, actually. Okay, all right. But first, we must shout out Kenya. So hello, everyone in Kenya.
Like, it's so mind-boggling that people in Kenya are listening to us.
I love it. And Des Moines, Iowa.
I want to give a special shout out to my friends in Iowa and in Des Moines, Iowa, especially because I do some work with the people in Iowa, as I may have mentioned in a prior episode. I don't know. But so I provide professional development through the CCR&R in Iowa. And I'm so psyched when I see that Iowa is high in the ratings.
I imagine like people are like cheering or something when they hear that. I don't know why.
I know a lot. I'm in New Jersey, but I know a lot of people in Iowa. So
I know, and they're like, "Yay! They mentioned us on air."
Well, thank you, Iowa. Thank you for keep asking me to return to working with all of you, and to those of you who even have reached out as individual programs to have me do work, and just overall to my colleagues and friends in Iowa. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and thank you for listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Because, as part of my introduction to myself, I say, like, I'm a podcast, I co-host a podcast, and I don't get into detail. And people just, as soon as I say I co-host a podcast, people go into the Zoom chat and say, I love her podcast. Everyone should listen to her. I thank you so much, folks.
I kind of wish I had that feedback because I don't get that in my career. Like, it's just different. Because it would make me just feel like, oh, I am kind of.
I get that feedback all the time
and
because of the work I do.
Yeah, I know. My work is different than her work. So, like, that makes sense. I'm not going to go around and just tell people everything. I do put it in a lot of grad school introductions, though.
There you go.
Because I have to always introduce myself when I have a new grad school. Nobody ever says anything, though.
Yeah.
But it's a different crowd.
Yeah.
All right,
Anyway, so today's episode was an Allison episode.
Yes.
Because this is something that you read. Did you read it?
So I'm in grad school classes, and I was reading an article that I found that talked about how when we create topics for our learners, that if we change it from a noun to a verb, that the entire learning experience changes. And I, in my entire career, never thought of this. So what they were saying was changing it from a noun to a verb first usually makes them learn about the topic through their bodies first, and they will exhaust that learning until there's nothing else to use their bodies for, and then they will put the topic into an object. So the example that was in the article was the topic of balls, which is a topic that I think a lot of preschools use, right?
Yeah, because it's in the creative curriculum.
It's in the creative curriculum. So this is a topic that they used was balls. And in the school, they had one class, the topic was balls. And then in the other class, they changed it to, let's learn about rolling. And so the class that learned about, it was just about balls, they exhausted the ball in a very short amount of time. Because there's only so much stuff you can do with a ball, which was catching, throwing, kicking, like punting it maybe, and rolling it. Right, those are the things. And once they exhausted that, because it was only about the ball, it kind of fizzled out. The class that changed it to the topic of rolling first experimented with this topic of rolling with their bodies. I guess there was a hill in the backyard, and the children would roll their bodies down the hill. And then they had these questions like, I wonder if you can roll up a hill. And then I wonder if we rolled in different ways, will we both meet at the bottom at the same time? So it was teaching them all these science kind of topics, like physics and like gravity and like all this stuff, and it had nothing to do with balls, but it had everything to do with rolling, right? Once they exhausted that, which the teacher said took them weeks to exhaust the topic of rolling with their bodies, then they went into the classroom or the play yard and started using different objects, but they took them up the hill first. So they took the ball and they rolled it down the hill. Then they said, I wonder if a wheel would roll down the hill. And they would take a wheel and roll it down the hill. Or they would take different cars and roll it down the hill just to see how different it was than them rolling with their bodies.
So I have another example I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
right? So what they're saying in what you read
Yeah.
is that nouns as topics are limiting in a
Yes.
child's mind.
In a child's mind.
In a child's mind.
Yes.
But that verbs and them being in action is not.
It
so what if
opens it up?
it's
Yeah.
so let's say like a topic like plants is a
Yes.
noun,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But if we change that to planting,
Or, yes, planting, now you have a whole gardening kind of topic.
well, you could do
going
that with
on.
plants though too.
I think if you change plants to growing,
Oh.
now you're learning not just that plants grow, animals grow, me as a human being grows, you know, like, and you've now spread this topic out amongst lots of different concepts.
I wonder if making it a verb makes it easier for the teachers, the adults,
Yeah.
to expand upon it. Because I honestly
I do think it does.
when I think of curriculums that have these topics like balls,
yeah.
I think it is the adults' limited thinking that limits it, even more than the children.
It might
Because
be.
if the topic is balls, people think, oh, balls, just balls, only balls. But
Yeah.
really, you can roll many things and teach rolling through the concept of
You
balls,
could.
right?
You could.
Or if you were talking about plants, for example, yes, it's about we're going to plant a garden and we're going to see things grow. And because we have said plants to the adults don't get out of the box.
Right.
And the adults don't go to, oh, let's just talk about growing,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that thinks actually it's more important for what the adults have as their box than the children.
It could be. I mean, in the article, they had one class that just did balls, and it did fizzle out pretty quick. The one that did it as rolling, they said the topic lasted an entire year, and it just kept going and going and going. And it was the children that they would come up with these questions that the other class was not coming up with. So, like, even they would come inside, and they're like, I wonder if I can roll while I'm painting. And they would figure out ways to roll things and paint at the same time, which the other class that just the topic was balls didn't think to like take a ball and roll it and paint.
You know what I think is even a better topic than rolling?
Ooh, what?
Motion.
Oh, yes, that's excellent.
Or, right, so
Yeah.
that's a noun.
yeah, but a more action kind of noun.
It's a more
I think.
action noun.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe some of the nouns that we have traditionally used in early childhood education, not even in any one particular curriculum, but some of the
Yeah.
nouns are self-limiting in certain ways. But something like motion, anything can move. So maybe we
Right.
should call it, instead of motion, if you want it to be a verb, moving. Moving.
Because I think what happens with the nouns, like if you're using the noun of motion, even when you say it, it conjures up like movement, like, right? But when you say the other, like plant or ball or box,
It's a
an
one thing.
object. It's
Yeah.
an object. So take the object out and make it more of a concept, I think, like more of like motion as a concept, and let them decide what objects they want to move.
Movement. If we were to say, let's call it, what did we say, moving?
Yeah, moving.
Moving. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's use the verb moving. That could include things like using objects like frisbees and balls and whatever,
Could.
but also could include transportation.
Transportation.
So instead of calling the topic transportation, if we called it moving, movement is a noun.
Oh yeah, okay.
Moving. Then it could be, well, transportation moves and these objects move and
my body moves.
my body moves. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could include So there are some programs that do topics like transportation,
Yeah.
exercise.
Yep.
It could all just fall under
fall under
moving.
this bigger umbrella of moving.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's more like you're expanding these topics to cover more concepts. And I think it also puts more of it on the children to be like, how do you want to do this? Like when I read about the whole, like, they rolled their bodies down a hill in multiple different ways for like a week, right? Like they would roll like different positions. They would roll like trying to figure out like, how can I beat this person down the hill? Why is he always beating me down the hill? Like, and it was like things that I don't think they would have thought of if you made it about an object.
Well, I think adults can expand in that way, but I don't know that everyone understands how or when to do that.
Yeah.
So this episode is releasing in March. It's going to be spring. Many programs have the topic of spring, but if we changed that to a verb, it can be a deeper topic.
Yeah.
It could be like growing.
Growing.
Because that's spring, right?
Yeah.
So that would take you, yes, we're going to talk about the leaves coming back on the trees, and we're going to talk about plants growing, and we're going to talk about flowers growing, but also we're going to talk about you growing.
Yeah.
And children growing.
That might have been born or growing, because it's spring is a birthing season, I think, anyway, right?
I think.
But yes, a lot of things that are growing.
So you can expand it beyond.
Yeah.
You know, very often early childhood programs focus on the seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that. Or even something like in the fall, you can focus on
change,
gravity and falling.
Yeah.
Falling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just falling.
You could.
Right.
That's
and
right,
that focuses you then on things like gravity and momentum.
It does.
But and the physics.
It could also go into weather, like rain falls.
Yeah.
You know, and the leaves fall. Like, it's a lot of topics covered under one word.
I'm trying to think of some of the typical topics that are done outside of particular curriculums, but widely done. Things like transportation is so widely done.
Yeah.
And that should then really be moving, and it'll expand it for you, and you can do it longer.
Yeah.
What are some of the other topics?
There's clothing. I wonder if you could change
No, but that's in a particular curriculum.
No,
I'm talking outside of that.
I know a lot of places that do that kind of stuff. But like,
all right, look, we're stumped.
I'm thinking like a wintry topic. But we covered seasons.
Winter can be
winter, like where you
freezing.
Talk about freezing.
Freezing.
But then I'm like, I don't know. But you could. That actually does expand it. Instead of just talking about snow and ice.
Cooling.
Yeah, like you could talk
cooling
about
is better than freezing.
A lot of things and how things cool. Even like you could even there's stuff
you can talk about the animals' hibernation and migration is a big one.
Is a huge
so
one.
If you were to talk about and change that to cooling, then you can explain how animals keep warm when they hibernate, and or something like maybe warming and cooling can be the topic.
Maybe it's warming and cooling. Yeah, I do hibernation for a whole month in December, but I always just call it. I usually expand it to forest animals, but that kind of limits it too.
That's limited.
I know, but I just learned about this, and now I feel like I got to rethink how I do that. You know, because I do a whole really good forest animal hibernation unit.
No, but that should be part of a verb.
I know. I just don't know what verb it should be.
Sleeping. Something.
Yeah.
Resting.
Or something like that.
Something, because why do they hibernate? They hibernate. When they hibernate, they're
preparing. There's a whole preparation
they're staying out of the cold.
Goes into.
They're staying warm. Think about insects that hibernate. They hibernate underground to stay warm.
Well, yeah, but they also go dormant a little bit.
They do.
So it's like this...
Resting.
Yeah.
Something. You gotta come up with a verb for that.
I know, I really do.
Because just the hibernating and migrating in animals is too limiting.
That's why when I read this article, it's not something I had ever thought of before. I think a lot of the topics and themes that are done are just based on nouns, but I never thought to change it to...
I think they're all nouns.
I think so. Like, that's what I'm trying to think. I'm like, can I think of any that are not? Like, and so then I started, like, in my class, I brought in plants, and we were learning about the plants, and we also have some pets. Like, we were doing some sciencey things. And when I read this article, I was like, oh, I shouldn't call it plants anymore. I should say we're learning about growing.
Yeah.
And then when I changed that, and I did start saying that, the kids are like, oh, I grow up, or or like it changed it to that. They started talking about their birthdays and how they turn older, so that kind of branched it into something else. We have a pet snail who was like, oh, look, he's growing, because he kind of stretches to
Does he?
move. Oh, my snail is like a monster snail. Like, I don't even think she's an actual mystery snail. She's like way bigger than a typical snail, but she like will stretch her body to move. And they will say, look, she's growing in order to move. So like, or when they gave her food, they're like, oh, we feed, the food is so that she will grow. But that was like, if I didn't change it to growing, they would have just been talking about plants, and that's it. So it did open up more conversations that wouldn't have if we kept it on the noun.
If you do something like, I'm Googling while we're on
she's
here.
Googling
I'm
things.
Googling.
I'm like, what is she doing?
If you do something like eating, you can talk about nutrition. You can talk about nutrition, about what different living things eat.
Yep.
We can talk about all that. You're not going to find it. Look at this.
No, it's not. I think it's pretty new. I think the article I read came out in 2024. Like, I think it was pretty new research, which I just found.
Look at us. We're so cutting edge.
Unbelievably amazing. Yeah, like it was really, because I really do think all the topics are nouns.
I'm looking up as we are live here, or not so live on the podcast.
She's looking it up as we speak.
I am, as we speak, looking at preschool themes, and they are all nouns. I Googled it.
All nouns. Look at that. Every single one of them.
Even something like fire safety is on this list. To just say keeping safe can be so many things.
So many things.
And last longer and keep them sort of on the same thread of learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all
nouns.
Look at these lists. The ultimate list. Here we go.
The ultimate list of preschool themes. Let's see if there's any verbs in it.
Oh my gosh, this is look, we're so cutting edge.
Yeah. Oh, cooking.
Bowls is listed on this website.
Cooking, there's a verb.
Yeah.
Rhyming. Okay.
But that's so limited too.
Limiting. So I think you really need to think of like verbs that are like very action-based verbs, I think, maybe.
Well, we gave them some today. Yeah. We said
and like
moving, growing,
rolling. Well,
that's still limited.
What was the other one?
Moving, growing. We did say another one.
We did say another one.
Falling.
Because
you can experiment with all sorts of things with gravity and all that.
I think changing.
Changing is a good one.
Changing's
a very good one.
I feel like your topics could go for a very, very, very long time if you change them that way, right? It'll just keep rolling into another avenue.
Another aspect of that verb.
Yeah.
All right, so the challenge, our preschool peeps, is to take a look at whatever topics you're teaching based on and see if you are allowed in your programs to change it to a verb.
Well, and even if you can't change it to a verb, like overall, like in your classroom, I think the way you speak could be more verb based, and that might change.
Also, just thinking. Even if you're not allowed to change it, think of it as a verb.
Think of it as
like,
a verb.
For example, we start out with balls, which is on this list of the most common themes that I Googled.
Yeah.
If you start out with balls and, okay, your topic is balls, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do balls. But in your head, you're thinking of moving. Moving.
Yes.
What else can I teach them about moving?
Yeah. And use those words with them, right?
Yeah.
Because then they'll start thinking like, oh, what else moves?
Exactly.
They'll start thinking of it.
Exactly.
And then they'll figure out where it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Go think about that, preschool peeps. And then come join us for our next episode.
One. Yay.
Don't forget to check out our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com, and look for our Facebook page, and we will give you that to think about and catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye, peeps.